Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Services Board public agenda. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I would like to call the Niagara Police Services meeting to order. My name is Bill Steele, and I'm acting chair of the Niagara Regional Police Services Board. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it is critically important that the board continues with its governance and oversight work. Since April, the board has held our monthly meetings by teleconference. Today, we're adjoining by Zoom. We will continue meeting virtually until we can safely resume our in-person meetings at our headquarters. I want to take a moment to thank Chief McCullough, his executive leadership team, and the uniform and civilian members of the Niagara Regional Police Service who have been working diligently and at times under difficult circumstances. I also want to thank everyone for joining us today, Niagara Region residents, members of the media, and Niagara Regional Police staff who are watching online. Thank you for your support and staying connected. With that said, I'm going to proceed with today's agenda. Although this meeting is taking place online, we acknowledge that the land we are on as we hold this meeting is the traditional territory of First Nations peoples. In particular, we recognize and thank the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples for their stewardship of these lands over the millennia. We also recognize the contribution of Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous people, both in shaping and strengthening the region in particular, and our province and our country as a whole. At this time, I'm going through a roll call. Just say here when I call your name. David Eek. Just take your mute off.
Here, Bill.
Tara McKendrick.
Here.
Henry D'Angela.
Here.
Bob Gale.
I'm here.
Kevin Gibson.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest with this agenda today? Seeing none. I have the minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, July 23rd, 2020, moved by member D'Angela, seconded by member Eek, that the minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, July 23rd, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Any questions to those minutes? All in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. We will move to reports from the chair. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to publicly recognize Ken Ganzel, who completed his appointment as a provincial representative on the Police Service Board on August the 31st. Mr. Ganzel was a long-standing board member who served with dedication and commitment since he was first appointed to the board by the provincial government on May 30th, 2012. Throughout his 8-year tenure, he committed an enormous amount of time and energy to a number of extremely important policy issues. His contributions to police governance and board discussions will be missed. On behalf of the board and its staff, we extend our appreciation to the valuable contributions made by Mr. Ganzel, and we wish him much happiness and good health for many years to come. Although we're right in the middle of COVID, we'll ask Ken to a future board meeting where we can have him right at the headquarters to formally recognize his contributions to this board. The First District Facility Project on July 24th, August 25th, and September 22nd, member Eek participated in the virtual Joint Region and Police Facilities Accommodation Steering Committee meeting. There are 2 full reports on the progress made for the 1 District St. Catharines facility, which is included in today's agenda, listed as items 137 and 138. The committee is also scheduled to meet on October the 27th, and further updates will be provided as the project advances. Member Eek, do you have anything to add with regards to that project? Oh, just take your mic on.
There we go. Let's see. No, actually, the things are moving along nicely. I think we've been blessed with some excellent weather. There was a bit of a shortfall on our north fence that's going in. This COVID-19 is making everybody at home, and they're doing home projects. We're having some difficulty getting some lumber to complete a new fence. So the existing frost link fence will suffice until that becomes available. I just want to remind the members that our police board and police representatives will be doing a tour of that site next Friday on October the 2nd. So we look forward to that and be able to see firsthand. I know I've sent out an email that's showing you the latest pictures and also the progress that's being made with respect to the extension of our headquarters parking facilities. They were somewhat shortchanged during the build, and the completion of that will be made this fall and will provide an additional 79 spaces. So, and that will be good for the Police Association members and as well for our own staff. So that's it, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So I'll skip my little thing on the site tour, as David mentioned that. The Canadian Association of Police Governance webinar session on August the 26th, board members participated in the CAPG webinar entitled Current and Emergency Challenges in Policing. The CAPG offers monthly webinars as an educational resource to keep boards and police executives apprised of issues currently impacting the policing community. The Canadian Association of Police Governance Annual Conference it's hosting its 2020 annual conference virtually from October 30th to November 2nd. This year's theme is entitled Prioritizing Wellness Through Governance. Agenda topics will focus on emerging issues in policing, and although the format may be somewhat different due to COVID, the goal of the CAPG remains to bring participants relevant and thought-leading presentations, opportunities for meaningful conversation and dialogue, and an opportunity to hear from engaging experts. Members wishing to participate in the webinar conference are asked to confirm with board staff. The upcoming PSB meetings, the next committee meeting will be held Thursday, October 8th, and the next board meeting will be held Thursday, October 22nd at 8:30 a.m. Now I'll move to the report from the Chief. Chief McCullough.
Good morning, Chair and rest of the board members. I'll just provide a bit of an update as has been requested in the past by the board regarding our addressing COVID-19 in the workplace. We continue to manage and adapt to the ever-changing reality of the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact it's having on our service and our members in the community. The Government of Ontario has again extended most of the emergency orders that are currently in place under the Reopening Ontario Act, and those have been extended until October 22nd of 2020. Since I last reported at our Police Service Board meeting in July, Niagara has moved into stage 3 of the province's framework of recovery plan, which allowed for the easing of certain restrictions. At that time, you'll recall that this included permitting an increase to a maximum or from a maximum of 10 people at social gatherings to 50 indoors and 100 people at outdoor settings. Also included in those easing of restrictions was the opening of indoor areas of restaurants and bars and the opening of libraries and gyms. These openings, however, all have restrictions and requirements in place as it pertains to physical distancing. As of September 19th, 2020, the government has scaled back some of the easing of those restrictions as it pertains to social gatherings. This maximum number of people now permitted to attend organized public events and social gatherings, except where the event is held at a place operated by a business or organization, is reduced to 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. This includes functions, parties, dinner gatherings, barbecues, or wedding receptions held in private residences, backyards, parks, and other recreational areas. These numbers cannot be combined to form a new capacity limit of the 10 plus the 25 or 35 in total. And the new rules do not apply to monitored social gatherings or organized public events held at a place operated by a business or organization. Further, to support the efforts of public health officials, the messaging from the government now emphasizes a much stronger enforcement approach rather than educational approach that has been stressed thus far. In keeping with this approach, the organizers and owners Private events can now be fined up to $10,000, while attendees could be fined $750 for contravention of the order. Police officers, special constables, or First Nations constables now also have the authority to temporarily close premises and require individuals to leave the premise where a gathering or event is in violation of any gathering limit. This includes a private premise except for persons who reside at that location, and individuals are not permitted to re-enter the premise on the same day that the premise was closed unless authorized by a police officer, special constable, or First Nations constable. As of Friday, July 31st, the new mandatory mask bylaw for the Niagara region was implemented, and on September 17th, Regional Council voted to extend the regional mask bylaw until April 1st, 2021. The bylaw requires that all persons wear a mask or face covering in enclosed public spaces, and includes members of the Niagara Regional Police Service. For greater clarity, enclosed public spaces means all or any portion of a building that's located indoors where the public is ordinarily invited or permitted access, whether or not a fee is charged or membership is required for entry. As a result of this bylaw, we've posted signage within all of our police facilities advising members of the public of the mandatory mask requirement as per the bylaw. Life within our region continues to be far from normal, and the province and public health authorities continue to stress physical distancing, frequent hand washing, and encouraging people to stay home when ill. We as a service continue to encourage members to observe these safety measures both in the workplace as well as in their personal lives when off duty. Our Pandemic Business Continuity Committee continues to meet regularly to adapt our methods as needed. The service has and continues to be vigilant and methodical in our approach to ensure the safety of all of our members. We will continue to be flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances based on a combination of government and public health direction, and we will continue to closely monitor what is taking place within our community. As already reported to you on Monday, July 20th, 2020, all sworn and civilian managers of the service who are working remotely have returned to the workplace. More recently, however, on August 17th, all other identified members who were working remotely have now returned to the workplace. The service is also mindful of the current return to school concern amidst our new normal. This means that we realistically don't know what the next several months will bring in terms of a possible second wave of COVID-19 and the potential for increased community spread. While we're committed to being flexible and adapting as necessary to support our members, I've encouraged them to proactively think about finding childcare arrangements should the need arise. The service also continues to work with stakeholders, of which include the municipalities, the region, public health, and our participation in the Emergency Operations Center to help guide us through these evolving times. Included within this mutual cooperation framework, members of the service continue to assist municipal bylaw officers in ensuring the compliance of the emergency orders. I want to again thank all of our municipal partners, in particular their enforcement personnel, in continuing to manage and deal with the various evolving government orders and in responding to the various issues and concerns identified within their respective communities. The Niagara Regional Police Service to date has itself issued 5 provincial offense notices for failing to comply with the orders. I can further advise that we've received a total of 1,007 COVID-19 specific calls for service related to Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act or the Reopening of Ontario Act various orders. As it pertains to personal protection equipment or PPE, our service continues to maintain an adequate supply of N95 masks, surgical masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, and wipes. This supply of PPEs and the supply chains continue to be monitored and assessed to ensure that our service is well positioned for any future possibilities. Since the start of the pandemic back in March of this year, The service has been able to maintain adequate staffing levels, and we have not had to cancel any scheduled time off for members. As of this date, the Niagara Regional Police Service has not had any confirmed COVID-19 affecting any of our members. It's obviously very good news and a testament to our members adhering to the various safety precautions that we've followed from public health. In terms of calls for service, currently we are trending at or near pre-pandemic levels. This has been the case for a little over 4 months now. There's been no significant deviation of calls for service in respect of geographical areas as it pertains to any vulnerable group or any serious breaches of the peace related to the pandemic. In an effort to safeguard and ensure that our members have the most current and accurate information, I've sent out 49 update mass email messages to the membership. Additionally, I continue to host virtual town hall meetings when necessary as another means to ensure that we're sharing information and providing an opportunity for members to ask questions related to COVID-19. These updates continue to be forwarded to your Executive Director, Deb Reed, who in turn forwards the messages to yourselves so that you're also aware to all of the developments as it pertains to NRPS operating in this new era. All members of the service, sworn and civilian, have done really an outstanding job during this unprecedented challenge, and I can't thank our members enough for their continued dedication and professionalism as they continue to serve our community. We are all seeing the current uptick of COVID-19 cases within the Niagara region as well as the province, and certainly now is not the time to become complacent. So we must all continue to be vigilant, practicing good hygiene, physical distancing, wearing masks when physical distancing is not possible. Just an update with regards to our annual crime analysis report. At this time, I wanted to update the board that we expect the completion of this annual crime analysis report for 2019. You recall that this report contains various pieces of information, which includes the ranking of the St. Catharines Niagara Census Metropolitan Area in the Crime Severity Index. The Crime Severity Index provides rankings for 35 census metropolitan areas throughout Canada. The service just within the past week has received the required information from Statistics Canada, and we are in the process of compiling a report that will be submitted for the board's review at the October board meeting. Just wanted to provide the board an update with regards to an SIU closure, case closure. On December 31st, 2019, you'll recall that the Niagara Regional Police Service personnel in St. Catharines responded to a Riker Street residence regarding a male armed with a knife. Upon arrival, an officer located a 56-year-old male armed with a knife at an outdoor location. The officer drew her sidearm and verbally interacted with the male in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. The officer also ordered the male to drop his knife, but he refused to do so. While this was occurring, a second officer also arrived and drew his firearm. As the interaction continued, the male began walking towards the officers, still armed with the knife, and the officers walking backwards while warning the male that he would be shot if he did not desist and drop the knife. The male, while continuing to advance, took a few quick steps towards the two officers, approaching them within 2 to 3 meters, who had retreated from a driveway to a sidewalk and possibly to the roadway. Resultantly, officers made the decision to discharge their firearms. Both officers subsequently rendered emergency first aid. EMS attended and transported the male to a local hospital and then to a hospital in Hamilton. Given the serious injury from gunshot wounds, the SIU was notified and invoked their mandate to investigate. The SIU designated 2 subject officers. On January 1st, 2020, the injured male succumbed to his injuries in Hamilton and was pronounced deceased. It should also be noted that the first responding officer at the incident was partnered with Canadian Mental Health Association worker, forming what we refer to as the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team. The primary purpose of an MCERT team is to respond to calls for service where persons may be suffering from some sort of mental health issue. This incident included mental health concerns for the male. However, given the fact that the male was armed with a knife, the situation also being very dynamic and unpredictable, the CMHA worker remained in a police vehicle for their safety and in accordance with the policies that we've worked out with CMHA. On August 14th, 2020, our service received notification from SIU Director Joseph Martino, and in his closure letter, he advised that the SIU had concluded their investigation and that there were no grounds for criminal charges against any officer. He further advised that the disengagement was not an option given the presence of civilians in the area and their potential jeopardy at the hands of an armed male. Notwithstanding the tragic loss of life, Director Martino also stated that he was satisfied that the lives of the subject officers would have been in real jeopardy had they waited any longer to protect themselves. So that includes that matter, and obviously a tragic ending to that scenario, but we're pleased that the investigation was concluded. Just some updates with regards to our homicides to date in 2020. We, during the reporting period of July 22nd to September 22nd, we had no homicides that took place, but 1 attempted murder. And to date, we've had 3 homicides in 2020, and that compares to 7 in 2019, 2 in 2018, 3 in 2017, and 1 in 2016. Just a little bit of information regarding the attempt homicide. On Tuesday, August the 18th, 2020, our 2 district uniform officers responded to a residence on Huron Street in the city of Niagara Falls following the report of the stabbing. Further investigation at the scene revealed that a 53-year-old male stabbed a 35-year-old male victim at a River Road residence in Niagara Falls. The victim was treated by EMS and transported to a local hospital for emergency medical treatment. The 53-year-old male was eventually located in Niagara Falls and arrested and charged with attempted murder. The victim in this matter is expected to survive and has since been released from a hospital. Both males are known to each other, and the matter is now before the courts. During the same reporting period, there were 3 fatal motor vehicle collisions in the months of July and August. So to date, we've had a total of 14 fatal collisions, and that compares to, and for all of 2019, we had 13, the same number for 2018, and for 2017, we had 16. Also for 2016, we had 16, and in 2015, we had 15 fatal collisions as well. So those numbers have remained fairly consistent over the last 5 to 6 years. Just some information now regarding those fatal collisions. The first one on Tuesday, July the 7th, our officers responded to a report of a single motor vehicle collision on Lakeshore Road near Cement Road in the township of Wainfleet. Investigation determined that a 20-year-old male driver was operating a Dodge pickup truck eastbound on Lakeshore Road at a high rate of speed. The driver of the vehicle lost control, leaving the roadway on the north side of Lakeshore Road, crossing a residential property, and coming to rest on its roof in a wooded area. Of the 3 occupants, the driver was treated for minor injuries. A 21-year-old male passenger was treated for life-threatening injuries, and a 25-year-old male passenger was pronounced deceased at the scene. The injured passenger is now recovering at home, and the driver of the pickup truck has been charged with numerous offenses, including impaired operation of a vehicle causing death, impaired operation of a vehicle causing bodily harm, criminal negligence causing death, and criminal negligence causing bodily harm. And that investigation continues. On Thursday, July 23rd, police responded to a report of a motor vehicle collision on Mountain Road at the termination of the off-ramp from the Fort Erie bound QEW in the city of Niagara Falls. Investigation determined that a Honda Civic had exited the Fort Erie bound QEW onto the off-ramp at Mountain Road. The Honda, which was being operated by a 24-year-old female, was in the process of turning left onto Mountain Road from the off-ramp when it was struck by a fully loaded westbound dump truck that was towing a trailer. The driver of the Honda was pronounced deceased at the scene. 25-year-old male passenger in the Honda was treated for minor injuries. The driver of the dump truck was not physically injured, and that investigation also continues by our collision reconstruction unit. The third fatality relates to an incident that occurred on Wednesday, July 29th. Our officers responded to a report of a serious motor vehicle collision on Niagara Stone Road at East Chester Avenue in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Initial investigation revealed that a northbound vehicle heading towards Niagara-on-the-Lake had struck a southbound vehicle head-on. It was determined that the collision occurred in the southbound lane of Niagara Stone Road when a northbound Chevrolet Caprice being operated by a 32-year-old male came into contact with a southbound Porsche Boxster that was being operated by a 60-year-old female. The female driver, unfortunately, was pronounced deceased at the scene, and the male driver was transported by an air ambulance with life-threatening injuries to an out-of-town hospital. This collision also remains under investigation by members of our collision reconstruction unit. Some items in the news. On Monday, August 31st, Niagara Falls uniform officers were called to a motel in the area of Dunn Street and Stanley Avenue in the city of Niagara Falls following a report of a disturbance. When officers arrived, they found 2 males and a female with injuries resulting from a stabbing. A 50-year-old male was airlifted to an out-of-region hospital for treatment of serious but not non-life-threatening injuries. A 36-year-old female was treated in hospital for minor injuries, while a 38-year-old male was treated for minor injuries in hospital before being taken into custody. 38-year-old male is facing numerous charges, including aggravated assault. The 3 persons involved in this incident, I want to make you aware, were all known to one another. Since the beginning of September 2020, investigators with the Niagara Regional Police have been investigating the alleged sale of fentanyl by a group of individuals in the Niagara region. On September 4th, members of the intelligence unit arrested 4 people in a hotel parking lot in the area of Lundy's Lane and Belmont Avenue in the city of Niagara Falls. Further investigation led to the seizure of a quantity of fentanyl with an estimated street value of $156,000, along with nearly $8,000 in currency. The 4 are all facing charges related to drug trafficking. On Tuesday, September the 8th, the Niagara Regional Police Service conducted its 20th annual Back to School Traffic Safety and Awareness Day. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Back to School Day was certainly like no other. This year, the school boards elected to stagger the start time and times during that first week. Even though not all students were returning this day, the Niagara Regional Police wanted to continue with this worthwhile initiative to remind drivers about the importance of safe driving habits that can help protect the lives of our citizens in Niagara. Each year, senior officers and those who work in specialty units who are not regularly assigned to uniform patrol duties don their uniforms and head out to the local school zones to take part in the Traffic Safety and Awareness Day. In addition to the regular uniform patrol officers on duty, another 41 officers took part in this initiative. This year's focus was on our 10 new community safety zones that joined the 2 that were initiated last year. The purpose of this community safety zone is to modify driver behavior and to improve safety on certain sections of roads where public safety is of special concern. The fines for offenses committed in community safety zones are increased, and speeding fines, it should be noted, are doubled. None of the rules of the road change within the zone, only the penalties. Officers attended each of the 12 community safety zones and informed drivers about the increased fines. Warnings continued for the following 2 weeks, and officers have began laying charges as of September 21st. Members of the Niagara Regional Police Service will continue to conduct safety programs in school zones throughout the entire school year by specifically targeting aggressive and distracted drivers. We'd like to remind all drivers to be alert, drive with caution, and be aware of their surroundings, especially in school zones and other educational facilities. On September the 10th, Grimsby uniform officers were called to a residence on John Street in Grimsby for a report of a domestic disturbance and threats complaint. Initial investigation revealed that a 36-year-old male had just left from his residence with his 5-year-old son. Detectives investigating the initial incident formed grounds for the arrest of the male in relation to uttering threats towards an adult female. Through investigative techniques, uniform officers were able to determine the general area of the suspect's moving vehicle. And at approximately 4:25 p.m., the vehicle was seen by officers near the border of Thorold and Niagara Falls. The vehicle was observed driving in an erratic manner. Officers followed the vehicle around Niagara Falls from a safe distance until such time as they could attempt to stop it in the area of Lundy's Lane and Beechwood Road. The suspect vehicle collided with an Ontario Police patrol car that was assisting with the investigation, and the male was subsequently arrested. Officers located the child in the suspect's vehicle, and he was uninjured. He was transported to a local hospital for precautionary assessment. The 36-year-old male of no fixed address was arrested and charged with numerous offenses, including flight from police, uttering threats, and driving while prohibited. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. And if you have any questions or any of the board has questions, I'd be happy to address them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And Member Gale?
Thank you, Chair. And to you, Chief, regarding that sad incident of the shooting of the person, I'd just like to know our policy with the CMHA worker. In light of what happened in Minnesota and other places through mostly the states, they're all coming to bat saying CMHA workers or mental health workers or whatever should be there when there's domestics, when there's things like this. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'd just like to know what our policy is with regards to the CMHA worker staying in the vehicle. I understand if a person has a gun, everybody has to hunker down. There's no question there. But say a person has a baseball bat. Say you're going to a domestic that's violent, and that. What's the policy with the CMH worker, HA worker? Because we need them to try and calm the situation. But and again, there's no question with guns that everybody hunkers down. But if a baseball bat, if a person's punching somebody out in their front door, is there a policy on this, or is it just if it's violent, the CMHA worker stays in the car?
Chief?
Through you, Chair, our policy is, and we've worked closely with the Canadian Mental Health Association and obviously Tara McKendrick's group. Our policy is obviously that the priority of the mental health worker, the safety is a priority for us. And we don't want to jeopardize their safety by putting them in harm's way. They're not police officers. They're not armed with any type of weapons. They do have body armor. when we have any inclination where there are weapons present, we don't put the individual into harm's way.
So it's a discretion call, Chief, and I'll go to domestics are one of the worst things. When I was a police officer too, you never knew what was going to happen. Does the CMHA worker come to the door with the person, or wait, or if you don't want to divulge that, that's fine. Or if you want to get back to us with what the policy is, that's fine.
Chief?
In instances, through you, Mr. Chair, in instances where there's no information to suggest that there's a weapon present or that there's significant violence occurring, the CMHA worker will attend with our uniformed officer or officers and can assist in de-escalating the situation. Our officers also receive training in de-escalation together. It's worked very well as a tandem for them to attend. In this particular situation on Reichert Street, I want to stress that it was a very dynamic and fluid situation that happened very quickly. And the CMH worker really had a front row seat to what was taking place and could see quite clearly that there was a weapon involved, and as a result, stayed in the vehicle to prevent them from getting into harm's way.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief. I just wanted to make sure that no one watching this is thinking that why do we have CMHA workers if they're just going to sit in the car? It's a discretion, or you just explained it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Member Gale. Member Gibson?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief regarding the fatal car accidents. Just a point of clarification, all the provincial roads that are investigated by the OPP in regards to accidents, fatals on those accidents are not included within our stats, correct or not correct?
Chief?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. They are not. Those are in addition to any of the stats that we report.
So accidents on the QEW, Highway 3 in our circumstances are all included. So for anybody in the public, if they're interested in a true picture of fatal accidents within our region, they would also have to do the research to get OPP stats on that as well. So
that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Member D'Angelo?
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on Member Gale's points regarding the CMHC worker. Will we be seeing some sort of tracking of situations like that in a further report of how many times they've attended, how many times they were potentially put in a position that there was some danger? Is that something that will come forward in a further report?
Chief? Oh, unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. That's something that, through you, Chair, that we could certainly bring forward to the board. We do provide an annual report on mentally ill persons, and I think it is captured or covered in there. But we could do a further breakdown that provides a greater analysis as to situations such as this where they weren't able to get out of the vehicle, or they stayed in the vehicle for safety reasons. We could include that in the report.
Okay.
Sure. That would be great if that could be just further enhancing the report that will be coming forward at some point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Member Eek?
Thank you. Just following up on that, that's really the significant issue, is the safety of the mental health worker. And it's you're heading into an unknown situation, and it's easy, I think, that the right answer is to engage a mental health worker to de-escalate a situation. But unfortunately, some of these situations have ramped up to an extent that we have to be concerned for that mental health worker. So I think, Chief, if you could break down the attendance of our mental health crew attending a scene, and whether or not if they participate or felt reluctant due to a situation. If we could get those numbers, I think what's out in the public, this would help, I think, answer or at least frame a concern or an issue that can be more readily acceptable under these circumstances. So thank you very kindly for that.
Thank you. Chief?
That won't be a problem. We're happy to do that. Anecdotally, and my knowledge of the calls for service that our MCERT teams respond to, it would certainly be not the normal when they stay in the vehicle. It would be an infrequent occurrence. They respond more often with the officers and any number of high risk and unpredictable situations.
Member McKendrick?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. And I just wanted to add, in addition to the safety of the mental health worker, the importance of highlighting the co-response model and the skills and what each of those team members brings between police officer and mental health worker, because sometimes our mental health worker being part of the scene without being police officers can cause more of a distraction. It's one more person. So when there's a safety concern, our stepping back is also to ensure the safety of the individuals who are involved in the interaction, as well as onlookers or bystanders and the officers, so they can do their work and ensure the safety of everybody. So I just don't want it to sound like the mental health workers are stepping back for their safety. It also contributes to the safety of the officers, the individual in the interaction, and bystanders and onlookers. So just wanting to highlight the co-response and the dynamics of working together as a team, and identifying when each skill set is necessary and what comes first, which is the safety of everybody involved. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Tara. That was excellent. Chief, may I suggest through you and our executive director, Ms. Reed, maybe we should do a workshop with the board in before the end of the year or as we get into 2021 with regards to our program here and giving us a better understanding of how it works, and to be quite honest, to answer some of Member Gale's questions. Because, you know, this is a great program that's been instituted here with the NRP, and I'm sure that this board will be discussing if we want to expand that type of program further across the region. So it's probably a good idea that we have more insight on really how this works, both from an NRP stance and a CMHA stance. I think they need to be involved. So if we could maybe look at getting something like that together, I think moving forward would be good for all of us. And actually, I think we should wait till we get our new appointment for the province so that person can be involved. So the timing on this will obviously involve that. So if we could have you guys work on that and then just let us know when that might be based on our availability.
Through you, Chair, that won't be a problem. It'll likely be Superintendent Marco Giannico who will work with Tara's staff, and we'll coordinate that. It's a bad meeting for Marco to not be at, so that's unfortunately he's got that assignment.
Okay, that's great. All right, Deb? Okay, thank you. Is that all right, members? Member D'Angelo?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that's an excellent idea, but maybe we could coordinate it on a committee day, because we have regularly scheduled committee days as something that has a light agenda, might be able to put it there, as opposed to picking another day that makes it hard for everyone to get together. Yeah, if we can
if we can have Deb look after that and work with staff, CMHA, and ourselves. You're right. If we can tie that in, it would be perfect. Is that all right, members? Everybody's okay with that? Okay, great. Thank you. Anything further? Any more questions to the chief? Chief McCullough, thank you for your report. We do have our consent agenda, items number 136 all the way to item number 148. I will move these in block. Moved by Member Gale, seconded by Member Gibson, that the information be received. Are there any questions on any of these? Member Gale.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll start with number 139 and ask my questions. Then you can ask if there's anybody else with questions if you wish. That's on the overtime and for the uniform and that, Chief. Scrolling up this is going to be a pain, so I'll ask my questions on it. The overtime for the uniform is the lowest in 5 years. And I imagine that's related to COVID. And plus you put in your description there, it's because we cut out training and things like this. So should we be getting prepared for a big increase in overtime then, Chief, next year as a result of this? And should that be reflected in budget practically because of something like that?
Chief?
So through you, Chair, I think what we saw during COVID was a couple of factors all coming together. First of all, we saw sort of the sense of duty on our members who wanted to help out and assist during this time. We saw some members who had rescheduled leave, who had trips booked, and obviously they weren't able to do those trips, so they rescheduled their leave to open spots later in the year. And we had much less use of sick time than we have had comparatively during that same time frame. So all of those three things sort of converging together is what allowed us to have more staff available and ultimately resulted in less overtime in order for us to achieve our minimum staffing requirements. I suspect that it will likely level off, and as we get more of the 40 officers hired that we had that were approved by the board, which was again a strategy to reduce the overtime, all of those things combined, I think, will cause the hours to probably be more consistent with the number that you saw that during that quarter.
So, Chief, so this is something that you don't need to take into account for budgeting for next year. You do the budget with regards to paying back for the vacations that were put off till later and things like this. We don't need to be concerned about that.
I don't think so at this point in time. The leave has been scheduled. It's just been put to another time of the year. I think there was some wishful thinking on the members' part that they would. That COVID would not be as long-term an event as it has turned out to be, but they will be taking their leave this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Chair, I'll defer to anybody who has questions on this item if you want, but I've got more.
No, that's no problem. Any other questions on item 139? No, go ahead, Bob.
Okay, number 140, Chief, on the special funds, or maybe it's Deb that should be answering this one. On that, Deloitte's audit for $5,000 is on our special fund. Deb, do we pay for the audit of what with that?
Deb?
Or if it's Deb that should be answering that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We do, in accordance with our bylaw, special fund bylaw, pay for the audit through our special funds.
And the audit is of what, Deb?
Of the special fund account.
So our budget is $38,000 and we're paying $5,000 for an audit?
Yes.
How often do we do that audit, Deb?
It's done on an annual basis. And I can tell you that I have questioned this in the past, and as well as through the finance manager. And that is the price that's charged for an audit.
So Deb, your opinion to me right now, $5,000 every year on a $38,000 is absurd. I would think, unless we find or members here think there's something here. Is this a policy that we should change? But I'll put a motion right now. We do it every 3 years or whatever. What's your opinions, Deb?
I can look into it again with the finance manager just to double check, because we may be required to use the same auditor that the region uses. So I would like to check that first, and maybe I could report back to you with some further information. Sure,
if you could get back to us, I'd appreciate that. But I think we must all agree that that's a lot for, if we don't find anything, if there's no hidden things. And also, Deb, just the activity fees, they're very minimal, but there's 6 activity fees on here, $14 and things like that. So I might as well ask it while I'm talking about this. What are those for? You're on mute, Deb.
Sorry. Yes, I saw that. I'll have to defer to Laura. She's not in the meeting right now, but I have her in the waiting room. She actually manages the account, the day-to-day, the finance unit does. It's not processed through my office. So
okay, it's not a big ticket item. It's just that I hope it's not bank charges. We're getting charged every week for taking money out or something on that. If she can just look at it, yeah. I don't need to hear from her because she'll look at that and say, what's this all about? So, and if she wants to do an email, that's fine. If that's okay with you, Chair.
No, that's perfect, Bob. Yep.
Okay, and that's all my questions on number 140, Chair, unless you have other people with questions on that.
Anybody else have a question on 140? Member D'Angelo?
Yeah, I just wanted, again, clarity. Is it statutory that we have to have the account audited?
Deb, is it a policy and procedure for us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is.
Okay. But is that mandated? It just mandated from the provincial government or some other body, or could we just, as Councillor Gale said, can we just change the date ourselves to how many times it gets audited over a certain period of time?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, that's what I'm going to look into with the finance manager and report back on that piece of information to see if it's something that the board can look at.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Any further questions on 140? Bob, next.
Number 141, please, and that's the conduct complaints. Chief, this is a simple one, but maybe not simple in your answer. The conduct complaints for Q2 went from 19 to 37. You in your report have done a good job at explaining a number of them, but are you concerned, and I defer to you on this, from 19 to 37 in Q2 as compared to 2019?
Chief?
Through you, Chair. I mean, obviously, the number itself is, it's a concerning increase. But as we've seen with public complaints, and again, relatively small numbers, so it looks as though it's like 100% increase in complaints. But the reality is, complaints fluctuate on a quarterly basis. So I'd be more concerned at the end of the year if we had a significant increase. So I think let's wait till we have more data and then we can do a more fulsome review and look at those and see if there's any trends that we need to be concerned about.
Okay, that's all my questions on that, unless there's somebody else.
Member Gibson?
Yes, I'm just curious there, looking at those numbers myself, the increase, and like so many things this year, I'm looking at a lot of this as the contributing factor being COVID. People just, not as active doing other things. And so it's really going to be interesting to see what that number is like next year. The same in the major investigations category has risen sharply. And so again, I look at that and say, is that basically a COVID-driven response, or is it an actual increase that we're looking at for the next number of years? So just a comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Bob?
Yeah, just a comment, Chair, on number 138, the NRPS number 1 district. I want to compliment Member Eek for the time he spends on this, the reports he gives to us, and I think he's doing a good job. I'm not even going to touch that. I imagine he'll talk about it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Member Gale. Okay, any further items to be brought forward or questions? Member Eek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just a comment around item 147, the annual report for traffic management, enforcement, and road safety. There's always something for one to learn, and for me, and that's around the automated license plate recognition. And I'm sure that some of the public would like to know what that means. And in 2017, with a grant that was given to us, all patrol vehicles have the technology to instantly read license plates and take necessary steps if they're wanted or paid or whatever. And it looks like an excellent tool that policing is using. And there's a quote here in 2019 that there were 2,055 offense notices. So it's nice to see that we are taking advantage of technology in order to keep, I think, people safe and wise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything to add, Chief?
This report just mentions too. Yeah, I just want to clarify. Not all of our uniform vehicles are equipped with that technology. We have. I think the report says we have 2 vehicles working out of our traffic enforcement unit. The units themselves are very effective. They are a little on the pricey side, but we feel that they're a very effective tool in maximizing on the technology that's available today to assist with these types of investigations.
Okay. Any further questions? So we'll move under consent agendas, items 136 to 148. Member Gale moved that, seconded by Member Gibson. No further questions. Please raise your hand, all in favor. And that's carried. Thank you. New business, item number 149, the Regional Council motion, Niagara Regional Police Services Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is correspondence dated August 2020 from Anne Marie Norio, Regional Clerk. That's moved by Member McKendrick, seconded by Member D'Angela, that the information be received and further that the item be referred to the Chief of Police for a report back at the October 22nd, 2020 board meeting to address each of the region's requests as identified in the motion. Any questions on that? Member Gale?
Thank you, Chair. I had some comments pro and against some of the items on this, but I'm going to defer to this report coming back from the Chief, and I hope we can have a full discussion about it when the report comes back from the Chief there and not spend time on it today, but that's up to the members. Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you, Member Gale. Any further questions on that one? Seeing none, all raise your hands in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Item 150, Town of Fort Erie Town Council motion, Niagara Regional Police Service Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It's a copy of correspondence dated August 25th, 2020 from Carol Schofield, Manager, Legal Services Clerk of the Town of Fort Erie. It's moved by Member Eek, seconded by Member Gale, that the information be received. Any questions on that item? No questions. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Item number 151, NRPS Financial Variance Overview, period ending June 30th, 2020. That this information be received. It's moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member McKendrick. Questions on this one? Member Eek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Certainly, this report outlines the impact of COVID-19 with respect to operating costs here within the region on our police services. And it quotes in the report on June the 30th that we were running a surplus of some $265,000. And we are now forecasting that we will have a deficit of, in the last 6 months of the year, to a deficit of $920,000. And basically, the impact of government and health agencies' response to COVID-19 and the tack that the chief and his administration has to take in supplies of PPE and utilization of staff, we are looking at $3.5 million in terms of costs associated on policing with COVID-19. So I just wanted to highlight that to the public that these are the impacts and these are concerns that we'll be looking forward to addressing or tackling when we look at our budgetary for 2021. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Eek. Any further questions on this one? Seeing none, please raise your hand. All in favor? That's carried. Item 152, Police Services Board 2021 proposed meeting schedule. Memorandum dated September 9th, 2020 from Deb Reed, Executive Director and Niagara Police Services Board. That's moved by Member D'Angela, seconded by Member Eek, that the board approve the schedule of regular meetings for the Niagara Regional Police Services Board and committee meetings for the year 2021 as presented. Any questions on this one? Seeing no questions, please raise your hand. All in favor? And that's carried. Item 153, revised 2021 capital budget, moved by Member Gale, seconded by Member Gibson. The board approves an amendment to the 2021 capital budget business case for the construction of the 911 Communication Backup Center facility as follows. 1, that the 2021 capital budget be reduced by $1.4 million to reflect the change of funding the construction of a 911 Communication Backup Center facility for $6 million to funding the cost of the specialized equipment and furniture required for the new facility at a total estimated cost of $4.6 million. And 2, that financing in the amount of $4.6 million be initiated upon approval of the 2021 capital budget and funded from debenture debt. Questions with regards to this item? Seeing none, any comments from the chief? No comments, or do you have comments on this one?
The only comments I would have is that this is actually a revision to our capital budget, a favorable reduction. And this is really in light of changes that have been made at the region in terms of the region recognizing that they have responsibility for the costs associated with the facility, and we're responsible for the specialized equipment that ultimately is equipped inside the facility.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. That's the end of the items. Any other new business? Does any member have a item of business? Seeing none, we have in-camera reports. These are for public release from the July 23rd, 2020 confidential meeting. Item 154, Special Investigations Unit, public reporting. There's 2 reports, C-143, Special Investigation Unit, case number 19-OVI-196, and C-144, Special Investigations Unit, case number 19-OCI 048. That's moved by Member McKendrick, seconded by Member D'Angela, that in accordance with the board direction, the above noted in-camera reports be received for public information. Any questions on either of those? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. We thank the public for joining us today. I think everything went very smoothly for our first Zoom meeting. And we will adjourn this meeting now and reconvene in our next meeting in 10 minutes. Thank you.